a day.
And welcome everybody to the first ever live episode of the Convergence Enigma with Josh and Stefan. Wow.
Yeah, what's up, people?
I think that probably everybody's been asking about when the show is going to be back. We've been retooling some things, redoing some things, and so this is one of the things that we're doing new for this season, and hopefully for seasons to come is doing more, or if not all, live shows. So
And if you're listening to the podcast version, not live.
yeah, not well. It's live for you at the moment.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so Josh Rutledge again for those who may be newly listening, who've never listened to us before. Co-host Stefan Gearhart, and
What
today
up?
we're joined by special guest Shane Hurd, and we're going to be, getting into a little bit more about what Shane's into, a little bit more about what the podcast is now going to be looking into with this new season, in just a little bit. So stick around. So, Stefan, it's been like 6 months since the last episode that we did last year. It was like
Yeah,
October last year.
I'm tired.
I guess it's been longer than 6 months, really, like 7 months now.
I don't know.
I don't know, but
Hey,
it's good to be back.
it is good to be back, man. And my birthday's on Sunday, so if anybody wants to give me a super tip, you can do that for my birthday. I'm just saying. Just saying. No, it's been relaxing. It's been good. It's been giving us time to work on some things. We are still looking at the Convergence Enigma, Dark Appalachia for down the road.
Yep.
Looking at that for a video series, so I'm really excited about that. Some other things in the pipeline. It's been great. We've been hanging with Shade a whole bunch since we're all out here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
That's been a blast. And just a reminder, guys, Shane's part of the ERT with MUFON and wrote this amazing book, Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. You want to get this, A Beginner's Guide to Researching UFOs. I was telling Shane, my copy's all wore out now. It's all like got bendies and everything like that. So,
Well, you probably keep it in the bathroom with you, and so it's got that stuff going on.
yeah, so if anybody wants to borrow it, it's bathroom ready.
Since the introduction of the smartphone, right? There's no more like stacks of magazines in the bathroom anymore. So,
There's always that one person that still has the bathroom reader, that's in there. It's just filled with dad jokes.
or Reader's Digest.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Shane Hurd, our guest, our friend, here with us today. The format of the podcast is shifting a little bit to instead of looking at convergences of the phenomena, so looking at when UFOs occur, Sasquatch also occurs, and ghosts, instead of looking strictly at that aspect, we really want to look at the convergence between the phenomena and the observer. So what does it mean for the person who has the experience? How does it change them? Are they in some kind of weird life path at the moment, and having that experience shifts their direction? So that's the direction we wanted to take. And so for our very first episode of the season, it made the most sense to have Mr. Shane Hurd on from ERT with MUFON. So Shane, do you want to give us a little bit about what ERT is and what you do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when when people see a UFO, they can make a report to MUFON.com. And when they do that, an investigator is assigned, and they investigate that sighting. And an investigation can be fairly, obtrusive, right? You're gathering facts, you're interviewing the witness, you're clarifying details, you're trying to relate their narrative to the evidence that you might have, whether it's photo or video, physical evidence, any of those things. So it's and then in the end of the investigation and through a process of elimination, you try and make a determination as to the disposition of the case. Is it known? Is it unknown? That kind of thing. However, there's another piece to MUFON, and in particular, as you mentioned, the experiencer resource team. And the role of the ERT is to really, I would say you could call it sort of like the compassion side of MUFON and the experience. So when someone either has both a UFO and an experience, contact experience, they can make that report, and it kind of gets split in two, and an investigator does the UFO side, and then an ERT member deals with the person and what they're going through. So what ERT offers is really a non-judgmental hearing ear about that person's experience. And for many people, getting that off their chest to somebody who's not judging them may be all that they need, but other people's experience may range into the territory of, traumatic, and they might need even more assistance than that. And so the ERT can connect them with healthcare providers, for example, hypnotherapists, therapy groups, that kind of thing, if they need more support than simply, this conversation. So that's really what we're talking about, is the compassionate side and helping them cope with, the experience that they've had with no judgmentalism. I'm not trying to verify it really happened or not. None of that. It's just simply what happened. How do you feel about it? And how can I help you?
But I think that that's fantastic, and I wonder how so on the strictly sighting side of the house, the investigator that picks that up is trying to rule out mundane or prosaic things, right? If
so like a field investigator, similar,
absolutely.
But on the potential contact side of the house, you are not trying to rule anything out. You're not trying to figure it out, what it is or whatever. You're just providing, like you said, an ear to listen to, and if they need somebody to talk to, a resource to do that.
Exactly. Yep. And you can see the
awesome
logic in that, right? Because, many contact or abduction, even other experiences are extremely personal, and they're often only experienced by that person. There is no opportunity for corroboration now, unless they've kind of set something up like cameras and things like that. But people typically don't do that. So it happens in an unexpected way. Even if they've had other experiences, you just, it's like a UFO. You can't tell when it's going to show up, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't plan for that. I can't imagine. I mean, you would have to have cameras set up every hour of every day. Yeah.
I mean, and who has the time to sit there and go through that footage? So.
Oh, exactly. That's the part people don't think about, huh?
Right.
How long it takes you to find it? 8 hours, for a 2-second,
Tom DeLonge needs to release his AI stuff that looks for things in video software. They just need to release that, and everybody else can take advantage of it.
Yeah.
It's for a low price of $599.
Yeah.
I know. On the hilarious side, I always laugh ERT because I always want to call it the ERT team, just like an
ATM machine,
like an ATM machine.
Yeah, we love our acronyms, don't we?
Yep. But no, I love it. That's and it's great because that's one of the things that the show is going to be talking to people about, is a place to go. And ERT, I almost said ERT team again. The ERT is exactly where we would want to send people first. And it's so great that there is a place for people to go right off the bat, because that hasn't always been the case. It was, wasn't it Kathleen Martin? Didn't she create this team originally?
Yep.
Yeah. And incidentally, in case people don't know, that's Betty and Barney Hill's niece, who
Right.
was a teenager during their experience in 1961 and had that and people don't realize that ended up affecting their whole family. They had
Yeah.
other encounters, they had other things happen. So,
Yeah, we had
um,
Kathleen on the show a couple
Couple times.
times, and
nice.
she's talked about how she's had her own experiences.
Yeah.
And it, almost like there's a familial connection where everybody in the family is, kind of being tapped on the shoulder, so to speak. So,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if you want to get into this a little bit, but on the ERT side, when someone does make a report to MUFON on the ERT, they're asked to fill out like a 25 question questionnaire. And what it does, it helps determine the questionnaire came as a result of various studies on abduction and
Mhm.
contactees, and and I'm talking like like the free study, and there's, I don't know, 6,000 people or something. It was a
Right.
huge study.
The one that
uh
John Mack was a part of.
yeah. and
Yeah.
these questions are designed to pick up on what has been noticed as trends or commonalities in different contact experiences.
Mhm.
And so, let me just throw a couple out. So, like, obviously, missing time, right?
Right.
Missing time is not every time, but often a factor.
Mm-hmm.
Or another big one is NDEs, near death experiences.
Mhm.
Sometimes contactees, have undergone that, and
Yeah.
that triggered their experiences. Or more obscure things like nosebleeds, or do you have you know uh, irrational fears of a location or something, or
Right.
and just these series of things that help the ERT understand this person's experience and help that person
Right.
as well. And so it's there is I'll say there is qualitative analysis.
Mhm.
um, Again, it's an act of compassion, and that
Right.
person, that's the goal, 100%. But there is some qualitative analysis that goes on in collecting this data to better help people when they have these experiences, and that's
Right.
exactly the role that MUFON's assuming in that case.
Well, and I mean, that qualitative data, although I'm sure it helps somebody after all the events have been kind of collected and looked at, I'm sure in the moment, though, it can be beneficial. Sometimes we look past certain things in what I classify as the mundane world, right? Just kind of the everyday activities that we do, and we just kind of write them off as like, oh, this is new, but it's just like, like you say, like all of a sudden you have a fear of flying. You've never
Mhm.
had a fear of flying before, but all of a sudden, within the last 6 months or year or 2 years, you have a fear of flying. If you're
Right.
37 years old, that usually doesn't just crop up. So there's probably some underlying something that happened, and it may not necessarily be related to contact or whatever, but it's still worth noting
Yeah,
that like you said, to be able to paint a bigger picture of potentially what's going on for this individual.
exactly. Yep.
So I do have a few more follow-up questions, and I want to get into those in just a little bit. But um, at the behest of several of our listeners, we are bringing back a couple of segments. We used to do quite a few segments, and we're bringing back spooky news and psychic word of the week. And so,
Yeah.
and depending on how those go and how they're received, we may work in some other segments as well. I hopefully not cryptid of the week. Hopefully not.
Oh no,
So
it needs to. But Josh, I did want to remind people too. One of the things that we are doing is we're taking your stories. We want your stories of the paranormal. Of just because we're talking to Shane and he's part of the ERT doesn't mean we only are looking for abduction
right.
stories, or contact stories. We're looking for all. If you've seen a ghost, if you've seen a Bigfoot, if you've seen any of those things, you can send those to us. Contact at theconvergenceenigma.com. You can do that now. You can put it in the comments. You can message us or anything. We're looking for those so we can share those with people. Okay.
Yep, and just also when you give your experience, we'd also like to know how it affected you. So if you're not willing or want to participate in a live type of engagement like this, which you're certainly welcome to do, but if you don't want to, you just want to send those stories in. The most important thing we want to understand is okay, you saw a ghost. How did that affect you? What was going on in your life at the time, or how has your life changed since having that experience? That's really what we're trying to get to is what effect these convergence of phenomena and observer has on the observer. So thanks for that, Stefan.
Yep.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our first segment, Psychic Word of the Week.
And now, the psychic word of the week.
That's right. We are back with Psychic Word of the Week. Psychic Word of the Week is brought to you by the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary from June G. Bletzer, PhD. Rest in peace, Honey Bear. I still miss you, even though I never knew you. So this week's word, I flipped through the pages and I landed on page 285 and I came across a very interesting term called the hologram brain theory. Now, immediately I'm thinking Matrix, right? Because...
Right.
Matrix, but this was written back in the 80s, so the Matrix wasn't around yet. Let me see real quick when did this come out. 1986 is when this Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary came out. But check this out. Here's what this has to say. This comes from someone named Carl Pribram. It says, each part of a living entity essentially represents the whole entity, continuing throughout nature. Each part is completely intertwined with the entire thing to which it belongs, having characteristics of the whole thing. So, for example, a leaf represents the whole tree. The foot represents the whole body. Therefore, the brain represents the entire universe. The brain is a hologram interpreting a holographic universe. The brain mathematically constructs what one knows as reality by interpreting frequencies of the cosmos and gives it to one in a third dimensional manifestation to perceive and manipulate a meaningfully patterned primary reality transcending time and space.
Yeah. So that's
welcome.
actually, yeah, that's not a, so that, it's a 1986 book. Presumably the concept predates the book being, penned and published. But I've heard of, the whole idea that it's really like quantum entanglement is, I think, what the basis of what it's being discussed there. And then the other idea of a holographic universe, I've heard that discussed as well. In fact, what's the guy, the physicist that recently died? He was restricted to wheelchair.
Recently? Oh, Hawkins.
Hawking. I mean, he talked about the holographic universe quite a bit. Yeah. So yeah, very interesting that it made it into a psychic book because it's very much based in today's world. It's based in science, but we've talked about how, magic is just science we don't understand yet, or vice versa. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at that. This would be the New Age theory of the 80s, right? Is now the science of today. Right? Is just absolutely fascinating. That's why I wish that the author hadn't passed away. I'd love to have seen her continuously to do updates on this encyclopedia. I don't remember when she passed. I know my copy is a first edition copy, so I know there were more editions that came out, but I don't know how updated they were. But absolutely fascinating, the stuff that's in here, but especially that hologram brain theory. And I love that whole idea that because a leaf represents a tree and a leg represents a body, therefore the brain represents the universe.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It was like, what a leap.
Yeah. Definitely a leaf in the right direction.
But
Oh.
it's also speaks to the prominence of the interpretation now of consciousness and
Right.
how broad
Yeah.
that it is, and that how there is a connection to everything. And interesting, as you brought up, quantum mechanics is headed right down that very same path.
Yeah.
Because of the evidence that's coming forth. So I love that statement, Stefan. Yesterday's new age beliefs have become today's science.
Science.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and
even
that
then,
teaches
it's
you a
like you're.
lesson.
Yeah, even then, all
Don't dismiss stuff.
all the interconnected stuff is all very Buddhism too. So it's like
Yeah.
the old New Age is now the science
Yeah,
of today.
good point.
Yeah. It's so very cool. Thank you for that, Stefan.
Thank you, June G. Blitzer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we got to do a seance. We got to call her in, and then if she has an update from beyond. So,
Right. Or
anyways,
if she has any kids, if anybody knows,
right.
I still want to talk.
Maybe she's got
I want her
notes that
stuff.
she wrote down somewhere.
Yeah,
about
that's what
that.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where's the estate stuff? So yeah.
Where's the estate stuff?
All right. Let's go ahead and jump into the next segment. Spooky news.
All right. Spooky news is always one of my favorites. And this is a goodie. This story that I found, it was making the rounds like crazy a few weeks ago. And that's why I've held on to it, because we weren't online at the time. So, but Linda Moulton Howe, she's jumping through the roof over this story, which was 6 cattle found dead in 3 Texas counties, all with their tongues missing. So we had some cattle mutilations in 3 separate Texas counties. There was no signs of struggle. There was no blood spills, no noticeable tracks. Authorities in Texas have little to go on in their investigation after 6 cattle were found dead in 3 separate counties, all with their tongues missing. The Madison County Sheriff's Office posted about the cattle on social media on Wednesday. The first instance was reported after a rancher found a 6-year-old longhorn cross cow dead and mutilated, and that was in quotations, according to the deputies. The cow was found lying on its side, its tongue and the hide around its mouth completely removed, but there was no blood anywhere. There was also no signs of a struggle. The grass around the cow was undisturbed when it was found, and there were no footprints or tire tracks. Ranchers also reported that no predators or birds would scavenge the remains of the cow afterwards, leaving it to decay untouched for several weeks, the sheriff's office said in a statement. As authorities were investigating the mysterious cow's death, 5 other instances were reported in 2 other counties, Brazos and Robertson. 4 adult cows and 1 yearling were found dead, all in different locations, pastures and herds, the exact same way. All the cows were found lying on their sides, with precise cuts along their jaw lines, their tongues missing, and there were also cuts made along 2 of the 5 cows' genitalia. Again, there was no signs of struggle, undisturbed grass, no blood spilled. The cause of death for all 6 cows is still unknown. Multiple similar incidents have been reported across the United States, and we're actively coordinating with other agencies to find answers, said the sheriff's office. Anyone with more information on these incidents, or if someone witnesses a similar circumstance, is urged to contact Investigator Foster at 936-348-2755 during business hours. So they made sure to put
their
that
phone number out for everyone. So they put it on the article, though, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah, that's the only reason I read it. But yeah, if you've got any information, that's where to send it to.
I mean, it seems like it's been a little bit since we've heard about a new cattle mutilation story.
Yeah, same. You assume that they just don't get reported anymore, but here's a story, and it made national news. I mean, it was all over the place. The day that it, now granted, my social media is filled with paranormal junkies, so maybe that's cheating. But I mean, it was like everybody was talking about it. My dad was talking about it.
Shane, does MUFON have a place on the questionnaire to report, mutilation?
Oh yeah, I investigated a cattle mutilation case. In fact, I got a couple pictures if you want to see them right now.
Oh yeah,
literally about 3 miles from my house, and I live, as you guys know, on the northern outskirts of Phoenix, so it's pretty rural where I'm at. and the case got assigned to me. So I'm going to show you first of all the one picture here. Let's see if
So
that
let's
comes
see. Let me
across
just
very well.
everybody. This may be graphic. So
Yeah, a little slightly graphic.
Oh, wow.
So obviously the head was missing, and there is
Just dried out.
yeah. And then let me give you the second picture. So I got a little story about it too, if you want to hear.
sure.
Yes,
Is-
please.
Okay, so this couple were hiking. Okay. Anyways, they were hiking and they came across this. And in the state of Arizona, if you have the death of livestock, you're supposed to contact the sheriff's department and the Department of Agriculture. So I got this case assigned to me. I met with the people. We went out to the site. They showed me where it was. And then, I thanked them and everything. And then they left. And then I cordoned off the whole site. I used, caution tape and rebar and all this stuff, and began to prepare my investigation. And the sheriff's department came out, and I was armed because it's the desert, it's Arizona, and
Right.
there's stuff out there, and you kind of need to make sure you're prepared. So, as I was armed, I had my pistol on my in a holster on my belt and stuff. And the officers came out and they were kind of like, "Whoa, what the heck's going on here? What are you doing?" And they
Right.
were all impressed with my the crime scene basically. I had
Yeah.
Shout out to MUFON Field Investigator Training. Right. So
and had a couple cameras that were filming everything, and I filmed everything as I went through. And in a nutshell, that the analysis was that it was unknown. I couldn't tell what happened. Now there were obvious, abnormalities with it. So the missing head. So, like, you know, animals are typically not going to drag that just a head off.
Yeah.
right.
And I did basically a 100-yard or 200-yard sweep, circular, kind of in a spiral pattern, how we're trained to do,
Yep.
around that area to see if I could find anything, any bones or any other parts that might have been missing.
Right.
And I couldn't find a thing. So again, process of elimination. I mean, it certainly could have been predation. I think that it was at least a month old, and it was getting pretty warm at that time. It was springtime, and it's just really hard. But it also had a cactus. Oh gosh, what did I say? You could see it in the legs. Two saguaro cactus trunk. It was a trunk of a cactus, but it did not. There was no root for that around there. It's not like what I determined. It wasn't that this cow got tangled up in the cactus and somehow died right there. It was not that at all. And you could tell that there were incision-like cuts around the genitalia area. However, the whole inside was cleaned out there, and there were bite marks and stuff there. So there was some predation, but as to really what happened, you just can't tell. And I feel the frustration of these investigators. Now, we're all aware Linda Moulton Howe, brought this, to this phenomena kind of to the fore, late 70s, I think. And, it spans across the country, and these things occur pretty regularly, but there's such precious little evidence. And, this case was going to be harder just because of the age and the location. But, in some cases they have like snow, right? And there's no marks in the snow, or, in the mud, and there's no marks, and just, so it really is dependent on the evidence that's left there. But that was my first and only, cattle mutilation case. And it was really fascinating to go through the process. And I enjoyed speaking with, the police officers, or the sheriff, the deputies, and the guy from, Department of agriculture that came out, and they were of the opinion that they said, well, we can't tell either. It's just it looks like it's been
Right.
out here for too long to really gather much data about it, but that their guess would be predation, of course.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fascinating, and again, it's in an area where there is often reports of lights in the sky.
Yeah.
There is helicopter activity and other things here in this valley that I live in. So, who knows? But still, very interesting and a current phenomena that's been in place for decades.
Yeah, I mean, it's really this is common to happen in Kentucky. I don't know if it happens out here or not, but in Kentucky, where I'm originally from, somebody will hit a deer on the side of the road, a buck. Another person will stop and cut off the head so that they can get it mounted, so they can have the antlers and all that kind of stuff presented. And I'm just, I don't understand, probably not the incisions to the genitalia and stuff like that, but I would,
Right.
If it was like a Texas Longhorn or something, I could see somebody cutting off the head to have that, just to have the horns or whatever,
Yeah.
and the scalp and
Well,
everything.
but I mean, what about the story in Texas though? I mean, the tongue is
Yeah.
what was taken. I mean,
Well,
unless
right.
you're like got a hankering for cow tongue,
My granddaddy loved cow tongue, so maybe I don't know. I'm just saying.
like you got to go to 3 different counties to get your cow tongue on.
Plus, there's a whole lot of other good meat there. Right?
Yeah.
Other than the
Right.
tongue, right. That'd be the
Right.
last thing I would.
And
worry
you,
about.
you like drained it completely of blood too, to wash it all down with, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's really, like you said, Shane, it's a really interesting part of the phenomenon that, that like strictly from a human's perspective, I don't think we've come up with anything plausible as a reason why it could be happening.
Yeah.
It's just because they don't it's not from a meat-eating perspective, because they don't take other parts of the cow which they could eat. Whatever they are, right, from that perspective. It's just a really weird aspect of the phenomenon. Almost feels like a purpose throw you off the scent type thing. Like, we're just going to go out and mutilate some cows. So they focus on that, and they don't focus on this craft that landed in the valley the next door, the next door over.
Right, wagging the dog, so to speak.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So all of that off of Spooky News. Good job, Stefan.
Yeah, that was interesting. Cool.
Still happening, folks.
Yeah.
Needless to say.
So Shane, I wanted to jump back in a little bit into some ERT stuff. I was curious when you were talking about. Well, first of all, ERT used to have a different name. It was, I don't remember what it was called, but it used to have a different name when Kathleen started it. And I remember she gave a speech about, feeling like the new name fits it better for what it is. But do you remember what that old name used to be?
Yeah, it was Experiencer Research Team.
Okay.
Instead of
right.
Resource.
Yeah.
And I make that distinction. I think I kind of explained earlier. You're going to research and investigate a UFO sighting. We're not going to do that to somebody who had an experience. Yeah. And we're providing them resources. So I understand why she made that change.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it definitely, from an outside looking in perspective, I could see myself asking a resource team for help, but a research team implies that you're some sort of a subject in an experiment, right? And so it kind of has a standoff.
And especially if you feel like you've already been a part of an experiment, right?
Yeah,
like the last thing you want is to be again, which is why most people are afraid to even share UFO sightings. They're afraid because of movies and things like that. We're so afraid, that we're going to get shoved into a room and interrogated and, things like that.
Put into a plastic bubble next to an ET because you're psychically linked to them.
Right.
While the government does experiment,
Well, Drew Barrymore's screaming.
I'll call it to ET over there. So one of the other things I wanted to ask is, so you mentioned that if you do a contact, or rather you do the form, you have your sighting plus contact, and those are split off, and two different teams handle those things. In a situation where the sighting side of the house is trying to rule out mundane aspects, if they find something that falls into the mundane category, how is that also approached with the person who's also working with the resource team from a contact perspective?
Yeah, no effect, no relation, because again, we don't want to add to their trauma. We want to help them. So yeah, and again, just the nature of it, a UFO investigation typically produces some kind of evidence, and
Right.
you can investigate it. And I always talk about the what, the where, and the when. Those three things, that's where data lives, right? We can gather that data,
Right.
you can quantify it, you can qualify it. Now the who and the why, that's what we're really
Yeah.
all looking for, but that's the hardest to get.
Right.
Whereas with an experiencer, it's much less about the what, where, and the when. Who cares? It's,
Right.
it's who and why. What happened? What was my experience? So
Right.
they're just fundamentally two different experiences that, can be intertwined, but the resolution for them is a very different path, right? So I really think that MUFON made the right call in forming a team known as the ERT, who incidentally is not just investigators like me, but made up of healthcare professionals and other people, nurses, and all sorts of things. But what they also found was that it was valuable to have an investigator involved if it's a dual case, right? So that if someone was straight UFO, went to investigator, being makes sense, no issue. Or if somebody had a contact experience only, and that's very much so. A lot of them don't see a UFO, don't none of that. That should be just a completely different path. But what's tricky are the combos, and so they wanted to have an investigator in each state or chapter that could handle both. And so I volunteered for that, trained for that, and was appointed that here for Arizona. I might be the sole Arizona investigator ERT member here, and I keep quite busy. I think
Yeah,
I
I
have
bet.
maybe 10 cases at a time sometimes
Well,
going.
yeah, I feel like Arizona is a pretty big hotbed for that. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like a lot of the western, really the western U.S. I mean, even parts of California, Nevada. Just you look at where Skin Rocker Ranch is located, right, where Area 51 is. It seems like there's an expectation even of this part of the country being more active than other parts of the country, even though as far as population density, there's a lot less people. It's more concentrated here than it is a lot of other places in the U.S.
Mhm. Yeah, in
yep.
fact, on like with MUFON cases, let's talk UFO cases. We do 10 to 12,000 a year, and the top 5 states are typically New York, Florida, Texas, California, and Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And Arizona having the smallest population out of those, California, New York, Florida, pretty big as Texas as
Yeah.
well.
Right.
But I think that there's a variety of factors at play. Clearly, UFOs have demonstrated an interest in all things nuclear. So
Right.
you're talking
Right.
nuclear power plants, nuclear weapon systems, nuclear powered and nuclear weapon equipped military systems. All of these things, and then. In addition to that, I think there is the factor of like lifestyle. And what I mean is, okay, there's a difference between the number of reports versus the number of experiences. And a lot
Right.
of people think, oh, you know, people, I've heard this figure. I disagree with it, but it's like 1 in 10 people actually make a report if they see a UFO.
Hmm.
So if we're doing 10,000 a year at MUFON, there's really 100,000 according to them.
Hmm.
However, I think that is way too low. And now just
Yep,
think
I
about my
agree.
logic here. There's two factors. One, do I even want to make a report? Well, I'll bet you it's more like 99 out of 100 people are going to say no. I don't
Right.
even want to make a report. I don't even know if I really saw what I think I saw. And even though the taboo has been lifted in many ways, it's still not completely gone, right? And
Mhm.
people fear what their family or friends or
Right.
their work will think, right? So that's one factor. And the other factor is, to whom do you make a report?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, your average person has no idea. I mean, there are many people who've never even heard of MUFON, and there are very few places you can make a report. MUFON,
Right.
New Fork, a few others, or
Yeah.
Because
smaller
back in the
groups.
day, you just called the Air Force, right? That's what
Yeah.
everybody did. They called the Air
Or
Force
the local police department.
Yeah.
or the news.
And people still do, and it falls in a black hole,
Right.
right? So nothing happens. So at that rate, at even 1 in 100, and I'm even thinking that's not enough. But if it is 10,000 reports times,
Yeah. Now we're at 1 million.
100, now you're talking 1 million
Yeah.
reports a year, or potential reports,
Yeah.
experiences per year, which I think is more realistic than,
I agree.
Well, and I'll say, I mean, I've had experiences, and I've made reports to MUFON, and some MUFON chapters are better about responding than others. And I'm a MUFON member, and I wish I didn't have to say that, but I think I want to be honest with people. But in Kentucky, I made reports and never received an email, a call, anything. Made a report in Phoenix, and the next day somebody reached out. So I think that there is also, if you have an experience and you make the report on MUFON or New Fork, and you don't hear anything, if you have an experience again, you're probably not going to take the time to fill out the questionnaire, right?
Yeah.
Because why? Last time it didn't result in anything. So I think there's also people who are having multiple experiences, but only reported it once, didn't hear anything back, or what they did hear back was it was an airplane, or it was a satellite, or it was Venus. And so, they don't take the time to maybe submit again. So I think that it's probably, like you said, people just not wanting to because of the exposure, but also those who do want to, not because they didn't get the response they were hoping or expecting.
Yeah. And sometimes, I have that experience as well, is that somebody, is very certain that what they saw was anomalous.
Yeah.
And then, you do the investigation, and when you do the investigation, you're able to determine with a high degree of certainty that it was something prosaic, and you tell them, they're very disappointed.
Yeah.
And they're unhappy with that outcome. And yet there's nothing that we can do about that per se, other than, make sure that we've done our due diligence as an investigator, that we document our investigation and our logic and why we came up with that disposition. But that always makes me feel bad when that happens. And you're right too, the chapters, MUFON is an international organization. It's based in the United States, but we have an international branch, and we have some 5,000 members worldwide, or 4,000. And then, at least 500 investigators, and, a couple hundred support personnel, and so forth. And it's almost like a franchise in that there's individual chapters for local areas. Now in Arizona, we have a single chapter, Arizona MUFON, for the entire state. But there are other parts in the country that are severely underrepresented. And that's because all MUFON members, it's all volunteer. Nobody gets paid for anything. It's all at our personal expense, time, money, effort, everything. And so it can be difficult to get people to make the commitment, to see it through like it needs to be seen through. But the majority, probably do. But I know that there are other areas where there's not a single chapter for a single state. Like some of the states back east, there'll be like 3 or 4 states, 3 or 4
it's one
state
chapter.
area under one chapter, and they might only have 2 or 3 investigators. And so it's a challenge. But yeah, there's certainly no excuse in not responding. I mean, every once in a while, some case gets lost or something like that. That can happen. But for the most part, I know in Arizona, we have like up to 20 investigators for our state. But we get, our average is well over 300 a year. So you're talking, we almost get a sighting per day, and it can take you a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 3 months even to investigate a case, depending on the complexity. And, there's always a lot of challenge getting together with people, and scheduling and all those things, and then the research and blah, 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 all that. But so I'm not making excuses. I just want to say, kind of paint the picture that it's, it is a volunteer organization and it's understaffed like every other organization. Right. But we are trained, and, we have, supervision and all of those things. So, I apologize to anyone that's had a negative experience with MUFON, and all I can just say is, we're people too, and things happen. But for the most part, we take it very seriously and try to be as professional as possible.
Yep, and you very much do. My own experience has been quite that.
Great, good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I hope it didn't sound like it was a negative way.
No, it did, Josh. It did. No, I'm just joking.
No,
I understand, because my Kentucky one fell under the radar. I actually got emailed in Kentucky, but when I emailed back, I never got a response. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely understand that, people are, like you say, they're understaffed. They have day jobs, right? That they have to do in addition to whatever they're doing for MUFON. So I completely get it. I would say that for anybody who has submitted to MUFON and didn't hear anything back, or if you submitted to MUFON and were told it's Venus or it was Starlink, when I first got started looking for stuff, I captured all kinds of things that turned out to be innocuous. And the best thing that I could do was, show the video to somebody and say, hey, I think that's the International Space Station. And I'll look it up, and sure enough, it flew over the same time, right? So I added that then to my kind of tool belt, if you will, my Batman utility belt of the next time I experience something, check to see if it's the International Space Station. And so
perfect.
So each time that you get a rejection, so to speak, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You just add that to your things that you need to check for and rule out when you see something. That way you'll know for sure if what you're seeing is, extraterrestrial or a UFO or, ball lightning or whatever the case may be, because there are some pretty fantastic natural occurrences of things that a lot of people are just not aware of. And so you may catch something or see something with your eyes that really has a mundane explanation that doesn't make it any more magic, any less magical, right? Because you still saw whatever it was, unless in fact it is an airplane, and you just don't have your glasses on, and so it looked like it was something else. But there's some pretty amazing things that I've seen and found out are natural weather phenomena. Like lenticular clouds are freaking awesome. How they form and everything, but man, they look like a UFO disguised as a cloud. So you just got to be. It helps to grow your understanding of what it's like in the world around you, so that you can better, when you do have something that you see something, and you make that report, it's less likely to get ruled as a mundane thing because you've already done the pre-investigation almost.
Yeah, I mean, great job, Josh. And what that's a great example is just basic critical thinking that seems to be lacking in society today. And that is, A plus B equals C, right? And and in fact, one of the chapters in my book, I go into a whole chapter about misidentification. And that is the most common explanation for a UFO sighting. Up to, it depends on the body, how statistics work, but
Oh yeah.
Right.
it depends on the body that you're looking at of statistics. But, 85, 90% of the time, you can make an identification using all the tools that we have at our disposal. And so you kind of mention one, there's gosh, I have several on my phone and on my computer, but you can, like, there's planes live. You can hold in your hand your phone, you see
Yep.
something in the sky, you can see the plane on the application, the flight number, the type of plane, where it came from, where it's going, its altitude, its speed, its distance from you. I mean, crazy technology. It's
Right.
wonderful.
Yeah.
or
Sky
or the
Safari,
same.
which I love, man, where you
Oh,
can see what all the satellites are
Yeah.
at the moment,
yeah,
space
heavens
junk.
above.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah.
and
Stellarium is another
and
good one.
Yeah. And what I like to say to people is, look, it does not mean that you lack intelligence or that you lack skill or that you're crazy or any of these other things, because it's happened to me before as well. Is typically what happens is you're out of context for some
Right.
reason. So, like, maybe you're out camping and you're in a strange place and you're looking at a strange sky, and the foreground is foreign to you, and the mountains and the trees and all that, the sights, the sounds, the smells. I
Right.
mean, you are out of your norm,
Right.
and your senses are heightened because of that, right? That's our
Right.
survival mode.
Right.
And you see something, and it is strange, and it's unknown, and don't have any tools to eliminate it, but you got this feeling that is very strange, and so you make a report. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's,
Right.
Yeah.
again, that's kind of application of critical thinking. But it can be difficult, and even a seasoned investigator can be tricked. And I know you guys have used, like, night vision, some good
Yep.
quality stuff, and you look up in the sky and you train that up in there. You don't see a single thing moving with your naked eye. You train that night vision up there, and holy crap, there's a bunch of stuff up there, and
Right.
some of
Yeah.
it's moving around. Like, wow. And that's much more difficult to explain, right?
Right.
Satellites don't go in a circle or make left-hand turns and
Right.
Right.
Well,
drop 2 inches in your line of sight in a
Wait a minute.
second, and
The
you know
NASCAR satellite just constantly makes left
yeah,
hand.
left-hand turn, yeah.
And that's shut up.
Yeah. That's funny. But
Josh isn't from
so
Kentucky
I
at
never
all.
mock people, or I
Yeah.
don't I don't think anything ill of them. It's with the greatest respect that I approach an investigation and a person sighting, and you do want to be careful and let them down easy, and
Yeah.
if it's something identifiable. But when I write up my case, I try and do it like a court case almost. Like, here is my logic.
Right.
Here's how I came to this conclusion that it was an airplane, and then I'll go through, and I eliminated astronomical features, and I eliminated aircraft and blah blah blah, whatever, the 10 or 15, 20 things that we eliminate, and then you distill it and boil it down to either it's known or it's unknown, based on
Right.
that process. So you have to trust in the process and rely upon it.
Right.
Does it mean it's 100%? No, we could be wrong. In fact, every case we have a disclaimer that says, hey, look, I wasn't there with you. I didn't
Right.
see this. I can't tell you what it was or what it wasn't for 100% certainty. Now, based on this evidence, that your testimony
Right.
and the physical evidence, photo, video, radar, broken tree branches, a big skid mark in the ground, blah, 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 any of that kind of stuff. And then, the totality of that evidence weighed against what's known, and and then you can eliminate a lot, and then you're down
Right.
to wow, So that's kind of how the process works.
Right.
And you just got to trust in it, because that's really the only way we have to do,
Yeah.
can identify something, is really a process of elimination. Because frankly, your average public citizen, we don't know. we don't
Right.
we don't have one. We don't have a possession of an alien or anything like that. So these are assumptions that we make based on evidence,
Right.
but we don't know. KNOW, we do not know. So, and I don't run around with a puffed up chest, thumping it and saying I know. I do quite the opposite. We don't know.
Right.
Somebody might know, but in general, I know I
Right.
don't, in the general public. So you have to
Yeah.
approach it with that kind of sensitivity as well.
Well, and I'll say that, talking about the need to, you mentioned your testimony, right? So the testimony of the experiencer, or the yeah, just we'll call it an experiencer for now. Whatever video or camera footage you may have, it's something to realize and remember that the human eye, it's estimated, has, if the human eye was a camera, it had 576 megapixel. That's the size of the camera would be, right? The average camera that's on your cell phone is like 12 to 15 megapixels. Maybe you have a DSLR and that's like maybe 20 or 25 megapixels, but it's a far way off from what the human eye can see. And so, that being said, whatever picture or video you take is not going to catch what you see with your eye. And so it's vitally important that you make notice of your surroundings. What time of day was it? Was it cloudy? Kind of what was the temperature like? What did it kind of feel like? Did it feel like there was a cool breeze in the air? So on and so forth, and provide as much of that information as possible, either in your report or to the investigator, to help them paint a picture of where you were, what was happening where you were, and what you potentially saw.
Yep.
Because if it was cloudy that day, and you saw a bright light that came, it was complete overcast, but you saw a bright light track across the sky. Well, guess what? That's not a satellite. It's not the International Space Station, blah, blah, blah. So right away, you can rule out a lot of things by just noting that it was fully cloudy that day. So it's just, there's a lot of information to be captured by the eyewitness, of the understanding that what the eye saw is better than whatever video or picture or whatever you catch.
Can I show you guys an example of that? Because that's a great point.
Yep.
I always say that there is no camera like the human eye. So I'm going to play you a quick video. Just hold it up to the camera, and you're going to see this little white dot in the sky here. So let's see if you can see that. Okay.
Yep.
You can kind of see it. Where'd you go, little guy? Okay, this was a sighting I had from my own home. A bird flying through there. Sorry about that reflection. Okay, well, all you see is a little white light, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the video is not that bad. It was an iPhone 6 Plus at the time. But I also, immediately after I saw it, I drew what I saw with the naked eye. And this is what I saw.
Was completely different than the video.
Completely different. Yep.
It was a vertically stacked series of three lights. The center one brighter, and the two and larger, and the two above and below were a bit smaller and a bit dimmer.
Mm-hmm.
So this wasn't an airplane like this, right? It wasn't landing lights.
Maybe it was banking
vertical.
really hard, Shane.
Yeah. Yeah, just doing a barrel roll.
Yeah, everybody's on their side of the plane,
Yeah.
Everything's tumbling down one side.
But do you see how that illustrates that very point?
Yeah.
So, a camera's great, video's great. There's problems with them, but it's great to have. It's still evidence.
Yeah.
But I absolutely know from my own personal experience, when I interview someone and they're trying to explain to me what it looked like with their naked eye versus their photo or video, I'm 100% with them. Totally get it. I know there's a lot more data than that image shows, but that's what we got to work with.
Yeah.
You know, so
Until they invent the way for you to take what you see in your brain and have it drawn on a screen, you know, and make brain images.
yeah,
Until
I'm
that
still waiting
happens,
to record my dreams. That's what I want.
that's cool.
you know, speaking of that stuff, and that I saw something. Oh, what was it? It was like they hooked up this somebody who was, I think, blind. I can't remember. I'll have to go and see if I can find the story. Maybe it's a good spooky news sometime. But the gist of it was they hooked him up to like a bunch of electrodes to his brain, and whatever he was thinking about, a computer would draw on the screen. So like we're getting really close to being able to put that stuff out, because it's all at the end of the day, they've pretty much mapped and say, when you see this color, this part of your brain does this, and when you see that color, and so on and so forth. So when your brain does those things, the computer can translate it into you're seeing red, you're seeing green, you're seeing, you know, whatever. But it really does stack on, though, the ability to visualize, which a lot of people have the difficulty with seeing in their mind what they're thinking about. So there's still probably going to be that aspect of it. But yeah, let's take a quick break and hear from today's sponsor, and we'll be right back. Are you fascinated by the unexplained? Do you love delving into the mysteries of the paranormal, or how we respond to media that pushes us to the limit of our understanding? Do you love to dive headfirst into the exploration of the human psyche with meditations or channeled messages from beyond? Join our podcast network, Another Realm Media, and explore the unknown with us. From ghosts to aliens, cryptids to conspiracy theories, horror to sci-fi, we've got it all. Don't miss out on the excitement. Join us today and unlock the secrets of the universe. Email us at contact@anotherrealmmedia.com.
Perfect, man.
Yep.
And that's, and that's another announcement too for those that didn't know. I mean, we're no longer part of the Fearscape Media Network. They've rebranded to Another Realm Media Network, and so pretty excited about that. So yeah, if anybody knows you got any podcasts out there, YouTube shows that you're looking for a network, or you want to start a podcast, hit us up.
Yep. And it's always, you know, we tell people all the time, you know, we put network in the title, but it's really more about a community, right? So
it's more like a co-op.
It's shows helping shows. So yeah, helping each other grow and get viewership, listenership, and whatever that looks like for you as a podcast, whatever your goals are, you know, everybody wants to help each other out. So. All right. So, well, I really wish we would have gotten at least somebody.
Well, we do, Josh. I would not a call in, but I've got a story that was sent to us that I wanted to read. It's a paranormal story that was emailed to us. So I'm going to go over that with you real quick. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. So let me put my glasses on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this actually comes from somebody who is sharing their friend's story. But yeah, let's see. This starts out the story. It says, in 2003, my friend Dwight was involved in a car crash that left him in a coma and struggling for his life. He suffered multiple broken bones, a concussion, and a collapsed lung, just to name a few of his injuries. Though doctors were able to save him, Dwight spent the remaining months of that year in a vegetative state with little hope of waking. According to his family, in February of 2004, the nurses observed that Dwight had developed an abrasion on his right cheek. It would have indicated that he was able to move his entire arm and scratched his own face. This gave his family hope for his recovery. Over the months, the scratch on his cheek would grow bigger and even bleed at one time, though none of the nurses nor his family would ever catch him moving or figure out how he was moving. He said, my family said that was a blessing. It was their sign of life that I wasn't giving up on life yet. But I was experiencing something different. So the following is Dwight's description of his experience he asked me to send in for him, and I prefer his words anyways as he explains them better. He says, while I was in a coma, it was like I was in a never-ending nightmare. I knew I was in the hospital. I could hear my family, but everything was dark and I couldn't move. I couldn't see anything except for the thing that had a head like a doll. You know, the ones that look like babies. He had a barber's blade. Do you know what those are? Those are the ones that fold up. And he would cut my face up and I could feel it peel off my skin. And then it would just keep repeating it every day, every minute. It never stopped. I could feel the pain and it lasted for more than a year. I thought it would never end. I thought I was in hell. My friend Dwight woke up in December of 2004, and he still says today that his memories of his year-long nightmare are still vivid to him and that he can still sometimes see the thing when he sleeps.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's those types of experiences where there's definitely what we would classify as a negative experience, right? I mean, nobody goes into that asking for that type of experience. Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about the MUFON ERT, but I really wish there was some sort of a program for all types of experiencers to get the same type of resources that a MUFON ERT offers.
More than just the church, right? Because that's
Yeah.
where you tend to go. Any like hauntings or possessions or entity, things like that, they always
Things like that
tend
is-
to send you to the church. And not everyone believes that, and that's not going to help them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just even to the extent of just having maybe what's it called a therapy counselor that is open to the idea, to the ideas or concepts that the person may be discussing. Just having that as an aid may be enough to kind of give them some direction or process through what they experienced. Um, Debs Shakti is a good friend of ours, Stefan, and been on the show a few times. I was talking to her recently about Whitley Strieber's first book, Communion, and about how his experience that he explained in the book was just really a very negative connotation. He just really saw it as just invasive and really negative. And she said something that I thought was very interesting. She said at the time that Whitley was writing that book, he had been doing a lot of research to write horror novels. And so, because he had that in his mind, he was in the mindset of a horror novelist. When he had his experience, that's how it presented itself, is through that interpretation of horror. So I don't know, this person and their experience they had may not have intended to be negative. Perhaps it was the state of where they were at the time or whatever. But bottom line, I think maybe having someone who's open to the ideas and concepts of the strange, paranormal, metaphysical, whatever the case may be, to talk through them about those things in a very open and accepting way may help them process through, where they were in their life when that was happening. Had they before the accident, had they spent the entire weekend at a horror fest, or
Right.
had they just finished watching The Grudge, or but like what
Right.
what was in their psyche at the moment that they had the accident, and then went into the hospital, and then ended up in that kind of state. That
Well,
may
let
have
me
influenced-
let me further that and say, is that how the entity manifests itself is by grabbing onto those thoughts, right?
Well, I
And
mean-
so if we're in the state where we believe you, which we do, then we can say that there was an entity there, right? And that entity was able to take that thought, because maybe you're right. Maybe he just got back from seeing The Grudge, right?
Right.
Or some scary movie with a doll head in it, or Sweeney Todd,
Yeah,
since there was a barber, and that's what and maybe it doesn't know that that's bad, you've told me before that my night hags, talk to them. They may not be bad.
Right. But you also surround yourself in horror, right? And so that's when you did talk to them, right? You still had a negative experience because that's, again, what you painted, you set the canvas up for them to paint the picture, but you
Right.
tainted it a little bit by your, what you went into it with. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It really makes you think about, we've talked about it before about, the first instance that Ingrid Cold showed up on the scene in New Jersey. He first presented himself completely different than what he did in West Virginia. And I think I postulated at some point in time that he presented himself first as the monster or the mechanical being from The Day the Earth Stood Still, in that kind of concept. And then he later presented himself more as the I can't remember the character's name, but the person who speaks for the monster that
Claw 2.
that is trying to get humanity to change, right? He later presented himself more aligned with that aspect. And so again, that movie was strong. It had been out for a few years. It was very much a contact movie, in the way it was designed and shaped. And so you're right. Maybe they do take on the appearance of what we already have programmed in our psyche. That's why there's been an increase or an uptick in, the seeing little green men, because the social and movies and TVs and whatever have fed that narrative of little green men. So now we have it in here, little green men.
Well, and they say, like, I think it was Woody's book talking about Ingrid Cold, where he had seen the controls and they looked kind of like a television set, like things from his time period, and that, again, is that what Injured Cold and those aliens used to make him better understand
right.
what systems
into,
were being used
to put
to
it
their
into
terms.
our context, right? Mm-hmm. Into
Just like a
context.
Star Trek. I mean, look at Star Trek in the 60s.
Right.
It still looks like the 60s, even though it's supposed to be in the future.
Right. Well,
Right? It's that same idea.
But yeah, but also that was also limiting on like what they could get a hold of for,
Sure. But I mean, but it's
Yeah.
still same thing. I mean, you look back and you even just watching what was I just watching? Star Trek 3. Just looking back at the limited technology from '84, right? That was supposed to be the future tech was fascinating. So,
Well, I think one thing is that you're kind of hitting on a principle known as anthropocentrism, and that's basically anthropocentric means human centered, and
Right.
we interpret and see everything as a human, right? And that's, I guess that's almost like sounds stupid to say, duh, yeah, but it makes us myopic. We interpret everything as a human related to our human experience.
Right.
And maybe that's something that they take advantage of or are influenced by, or,
Right.
Some people have positive experiences and some have negative. Why?
Right.
That's a
Right.
great question. Why? Is it because the person who has been contacted has negative thoughts, like you guys are talking about, horror
Yep.
movies and things like that? Or are they, kind of the new ageian love and peace and light, and
Right.
and that's their personality, and that's what they feed their mind all the time, and then their experience, is like that. So,
yeah.
it's hard to say. I mean, again, we don't know.
We don't know.
But
Right.
what we know, people are having experiences,
Oh,
both
yeah.
positive and negative, by interacting with some kind of non-human intelligence. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a fact. We know that
Right.
much.
Oh
So,
yeah, we know that. I mean, I would say that when the governments of the world, logically speaking, when the governments of the world said UFOs are real, that opened the door for everything else to be real. Right?
Mhm.
If one is
Yeah.
true, they all can be true. So
Mhm.
no more is it a case of no, there are no aliens, because we know for a fact that UFOs exist. There's no disputing that anymore.
Mhm.
So we know for a fact UFOs exist, therefore aliens could exist.
Mhm.
Therefore ghosts could exist, poltergeist, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, etc. All those things
Mhm.
can exist simply because we know for a fact that UFOs do exist. So because of that, we can no longer go into a situation and say, "No, I don't accept that Sasquatch is real, or I don't accept that ghosts are real, or whatever the case may be," because again, mass governments, societies across the world have said UFOs are real. So we have to look and approach every situation as if it has the possibility of being real,
It's
and only
all about the evidence.
right, and only through investigation, and only through like only through investigation and research on the provided evidence can we say for sure if this specific incident happened or is real. But that doesn't even speak for all of the incidents that are later reported. So,
Yep.
Yeah, I'll even throw this out regarding that concept, and it's super practical. Um, the light spectrum is like, let me see, this big, right?
right,
Here we go. But we see this much of it, this little teeny tiny little,
right,
right? So it's a proven fact that our five senses, which gather data and feed to our brain so our brain can construct reality for us, is limited. We know for a fact that it is impossible for a human being to interpret all of the realities. And I'm talking subjective, this table, knock,
right,
knock, knock, reality. We can't even interpret it all. And that applies to our hearing, our sense of taste and touch and feel and temperature. Now with modern technology, we've expanded our ability to interpret that which we cannot interpret with only our physical senses. So to me, that was an aha moment for me, in terms of, my kind of philosophy now is that absolutely anything is possible until it's proven not to be.
Yep.
So whether it's UFOs, it's ghosts, it's Bigfoot, any of that, that's all possible, because we cannot completely interpret our environment. Right next to me, right here, there could be something that my senses cannot detect,
right,
and we're talking maybe dimensionality there or whatever. But
Yep.
the bottom line is, you cannot ignore that which is unseen. And it we used to describe it and deal with it in a religious context, right? Religion was kind of the first science, but now we have more than that. We have tools, we have technology, we have knowledge that's been amassed, right? First we mastered fire, and then then electricity, and then now splitting the atom. And this is how it works. We build on our knowledge and our experience, and we we move things from belief to known or proof, through the scientific process. So I think it is absolutely reasonable to say that ghosts, Bigfoots, whatever these things are, they do exist. We
right.
just, you know, have just been able to interpret their existence in a way that, may produce some kind of identification if we do it right.
Yep.
Well,
And remember, if the brain is limited, like you said, then that means the universe is limited according to the hologram brain theory.
way to bring it back around, Stefan. Way to bring it.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah,
And mic drop, boom.
yeah. So I was going to say something about the idea that that there's more stuff happening around us. Um, Talking about the brain, right? And it's taking what it's receiving from the five senses, and it's painting our picture of our reality. There was a study that was done, and I can't remember the name of the study or who did it, but I remember reading about it a few years ago, where they basically put people in a cabin in the woods. They had no access to the internet, no electronics. and all that kind of stuff. That basically deprive them of all these kind of constant stimulant things that are going on an everyday basis in this world. And over the course of a week, as they began to kind of like detox, if you will, from that constant bombardment of interaction with all these different things, they started picking up and noticing things in their environment that they previously were just oblivious to. Sounds in the woods, uh, wind blowing through a window, things like that. That when they first arrived there and lost their smartphones and all that kind of stuff, they didn't really notice or pick up on those things. But the more they removed that stuff from their world and really became desensitized to it, the more they started to pick up on other aspects of the natural world. And it really makes you think if, ancient humans did see these things, which is where our stories of fairies and gnomes and elves and all this kind of stuff comes from, because we didn't have the constant electronic stimuli that's constantly feeding our brains with all this other stuff today.
Not even that. I mean, think of like planes and cars, how much, and the lights of the world. Imagine just what they saw 300, 200 years ago, what the sky looked like,
Yeah, I like that theory. That's interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
So what I'm hearing is that the three of us are going to go to a wigwam, and for a week in like Page or
for a
someplace.
week.
Yeah, Stefan, you can get away, right?
Come back with a full Shane beard.
Yeah. Yeah, but by the way, Shane, we had a person ask in the chat, how long did it take you to grow the beard?
Oh, about a year. And I just left it alone. But that was the hardest part, right? Because you want to trim it, you want to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was told don't, just leave it alone. And then after a year, got it shaped a little. And about every 3 months, I'll trim a little, but that's it.
Every month you washed it with Rogaine.
Yeah, I know. I've always worn like a very close cropped beard, and I had no idea I could do this. And this is kind of a product of COVID, right? Staying at home,
Right.
and grew it out. But once I grew it out, I was like, well, I didn't even know I could. And then now that I can, I kind of feel obligated to keep it because it took so much time and effort and stuff. And not everyone can do it. So why not ride with it? I'm fat, old, and bald anyway, so who cares, right?
Yeah, and Josh, that wasn't just anybody asking. That was Jason Gillamette from the UAP Studies podcast asking that, our good buddy.
It was Jason?
Yeah.
I know Jason.
Yeah.
My dad grows a beard similar to that length every year around the winter time. And my kids during that time call him Santa. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I get that all the time. Some lady actually asked me the other day, "Am I on the naughty list or the nice list?" I'm like, "Check, please." I gotta go. I'm not even answering that one. I'll be in trouble one way or another.
Josh, I wanted to bring up, I know you had said, ways that people can contact us if they want to be, let us know about their stories, that you could actually come on our show during the live feed. We can send you a link so that you can show up on video with us and share your story. That is one way that you could do that. How can they do that?
Yep. So all they have to do is message us before or even during a live stream, and I can give them the link. And they can and then the way that it works is it's through a program called StreamYard. You just have to have web access on a device, phone, computer, tablet, whatever the case may be, and then you can come in. And actually could put you into like a waiting room, so to speak. I'll see you come in. I'll shoot you a quick chat just to say, hey, what's going on? What's your name? What do you got to talk about? And then I'll add you into the feed, and then you can talk about your experiences. If you're comfortable with it, let us ask a couple of questions. Like Shane said, we're not here to judge. We just want to understand, kind of, again, how this has affected you, how it impacted you, and looking at the idea that sometimes these things happen to us. I think, at least for me, I can only speak for me, but for me, it helped me. It helped put me back on a path that I had fallen off of. And so it really served as like a like a bumper on a bowling lane, right? So I was bouncing all over the place, but this kind of helped bump me back on track. So now I'm on track to get a strike, although I never get a strike. So it's probably like every pin except for the number 9 pin or something. So yeah,
Oh, you don't ever get a strike? Do you want to go bowling?
I do want to go bowling, but I don't.
I love
Put some
bowling.
money on it. I do too. Put some
Are
money
you,
on
are you
it.
going to bet against me getting a strike? Is that what you're saying? And if I
Yeah.
get a strike, I have to pay you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do whatever to make some money off of it.
Okay. So yeah, but yeah, message us if you want to drop us a line for your story that way. Email us. While we're doing the live stream, messages there on the live stream, whatever you want to do. But that's the real focus for this season is we want to understand from you, the experiencers, not just
Oh, looks like we lost Josh. All right. Well, I guess we've lost Josh there. There he is.
sorry. I'm glad it didn't end the broadcast because I actually
Yeah.
So hit my side mouse button instead of the. I need to take my hand off my.
I think
mouse.
Shane and I were both like, "Are we still live?"
So yeah, it says we're still live. So yay, live
Yay.
broadcasting hiccups. Um, what I was going to say is that just understand where you guys are, and for me, it was that guidepost that helped put me back on track. And it seems like every time I start to kind of sway or wander away from the path that I'm supposed to be on, little things pop up again. It's never been like it was for the thing that Stefan and I saw. We've talked about so many times in my backyard 3.5 years ago, but it's little things that kind of just present themselves to let me know that hey, you're kind of wandering off again. Let's go ahead and bump you back on the path you're supposed to be on. So anyways, so yeah, we'd love to hear about it. And you can be on here with a guest. You won't always be Shane, but we'll have other guests, or it might just be me and Stefan. And but the idea is to share with other people so that they know that they're not alone, and you get an opportunity to talk about something that may be near and dear to you. So yeah,
Cool.
Stefan.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. You can also message us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those places are at TC, or no, what is it? At the C
Enigma.
Enigma. That's right. At the C
It's
Enigma.
not a dirty thing. We just Convergence was too long.
This is way too long. Cool, man. Well, Josh, I think it's
So,
about time
yeah.
we should probably get out of here if you're.
Yep, I think so too. Thank you everybody for. I've seen a couple people pop in here and there for the live stream. I hope that audience grows as we continue to do this season. The cadence is going to be a little different. We are going to do these once a month. Stefan with being a new dad and me with being a new resident to Arizona. We're just full of all kinds of exciting things outside of podcasting. And so we're going to limit it down to once a month for now. That may change in the future, but for right now, I want to set that expectation. And if you like the show, please share it. It's both on YouTube and on Facebook. Share it with anybody. Like it on those platforms if you have the opportunity.
Yep. Or the podcast versions as well.
Or the podcast version as well. And drop a comment. Even on the podcast version, there's probably a comment section, interaction section for you to let us know what you think of the new format. And also, what were your thoughts on what we talked about here today? So, but anyways, thank you again for everybody who tuned in. And
thanks to Shane Hurd, man.
Yeah. Thank you, Shane Hurd. Oh, I did want to give Shane another opportunity. Shane, do you want to let anybody know about where they can go to submit sighting or?
Sure. Yeah. So if you have a report of a sighting, or if you've had an experience that you want ERT help on, you can just go to MUFON.com, and there's a tab that says report a UFO, another tab that says report an experience, and we'll put you in the right queue. And generally, it goes through a triage process at our headquarters, and then it gets assigned to the appropriate location, chapter, and investigator. and we respond within either 24, 48, or 72 hours, depending on the complexity of the case. So,
Right.
a hot one will get on it in 24 hours, and that kind of thing. So, but we're very happy to do that, and I appreciate people's willingness to, kind of overcome the fear and the fear of ridicule and all those things. Because think about it, you make a report, you become a part of world history. I mean, MUFON has reports from 1969, right?
Yep.
Hundreds of thousands of cases. Your case becomes part of the historical record, which I just
Right.
find that's really cool. 100 years from now, people studying this, that somebody may go, wow, this is a cool case, and glad to hear it, and we use this data.
Yeah, when my great grandkids are taking history of ufology in high school, they're going to get to
Yeah.
see all these cases that were reported by the MUFON organization at the time,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, that would be so cool. Yep.
And I want to remind people, pick up Shane's book, Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, Shane Hurd. You guys can go on Amazon, or is there anywhere else they can go to get this, or just Amazon?
That's
Shane?
it. Just go right to Amazon, put in my name or the name of the book. It'll take you right there. I think it's $14.95 for the paperback and $5 for the Kindle version. And I appreciate it. And again, I wrote the book. Book's not about money, anything like that. It's really just about putting what I learned down on paper for posterity. But the main thing I wrote it for was because of what happened in 2017 and with the TTSA, the release of the videos, and which led to really the lifting of the taboo. People, I made the assumption there would be a lot of people now expressing interest that didn't before.
yeah,
And I'm hoping it's younger people and et cetera.
Same.
And everyone, of course. But I wrote the book to help people understand that don't have the breadth and width of experience with ufology, to understand these are the important issues, and also to equip them to not waste a bunch of time going down different rabbit holes. Look, this is what's important. This is what UAP is. This is what misidentification is. This is what hoaxes are. This is the wheat and chaff of information,
Right.
good stuff and bad stuff, and the cover up and classic cases and all these things that will equip a person who's new at it to really get dialed in quick on what's really important. And then I always say UFOs, it's like a great big buffet. It's too big to focus on everything, right?
Right.
You have crop circles and consciousness and nuts and bolts and all these things, right? And what I learned right up quick when I started was just pick a lane, Shane. Pick a lane that suits you. You can be good at one thing or two or three or four things, but you're not going to be good at 15 things. So don't even do that to yourself or others.
Yeah.
And so that was really the goal. And I hope that it's an easy read. It's written like I'm just talking to you here.
It is.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
it's a
cool.
great read. Yeah.
Oh, good. And it's really to help people. That's it. So I'm very pleased and thank you for bringing it up. Not necessary, but I hope that somebody that's interested will have a good experience with it.
Well, and along that line, when I was talking about earlier about taking, if you wanted to, you see something and you want to make a report that you're pretty sure is not going to get rejected, read Shane's book, right? And then you'll know what to look for, what to rule out, what information to gather, so on and so forth. So when you do make that report, it's more than just, going to get thrown out or, circumstantial or whatever the case may be. So yeah, there you go. Go read Shane's book and be a better investigator.
If you like Shane's face like we do, and you like his silhouette even more, you can pick up one of the shirts we created for him, the Have You Heard shirts with his silhouette on there. Josh, where can they pick one of those up?
Yep. If they go to our website, theconvergenceenigma.com, and click on the store link, it takes you to our TeePublic site, and that's where the shirt is located. So
Yep. It's
Thanks
awesome.
for that. It is awesome. Very creative of you guys. No doubt about it. Awesome.
Yeah, get it so you can wear it at the MUFON Symposium this year.
That's right.
Yeah.
Everybody in the audience needs to have one on.
At Christmas, I got one for everyone in my family. So, periodically they're walking around and, even my granddaughters are 12, 13, 14 years old. Have you heard? And, people like at the store, like, what is that? It's a great conversation starter.
Yeah,
Yes, and we love it. We had fun with that. But yeah, thank you, Shane. Again, thank you so much for coming on, man. And we will always have you back on the show.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Absolute pleasure. Love it.
All right, so Josh, this has been the Convergence Enigma with Josh and Stefan. Let's go ahead and get out of here, my friend.
Yep. So this is Josh. The truth is now.
This has been Stefan. Keep your eyes to the skies, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everybody.